She thought this road belonged to her HOA, so she locked me out of my own land. What she didn't know, is that I had just bought all 60 acres. And the gate she built, was about to shut down everything. The chain snapped tight against my truck bumper before I could even reach the cabin. A fresh steel gate blocked the only road in. A white HOA sign hung from it like it had always belonged there. My cabin sat half a mile up that dirt road, hidden behind pine and cedar, while 2 contractor trucks idled on the other side like they were waiting for permission to finish taking it. Then I saw the second lock. Not on their gate. On my old county access post, the one that controlled every vehicle that entered that ridge. Karen had chained her claim to the only road in, and she'd done it on the one piece of infrastructure she didn't understand. The smell of hot metal and chain oil hung in the morning air. Diesel drifted through the trees. Somewhere uphill, a circular saw kicked on for half a second, then stopped. I stepped out of the truck. Gravel cracked under my boots. The gate was new. Posts sunk deep. Whoever put it in had worked fast, and early. A laminated notice flapped against the wire panel. Private community access. Willow Creek Ridge HOA. Unauthorized entry subject to removal. My name wasn't on it. My cabin wasn't on it either. But the survey tape tied to the fence posts told me everything I needed to know. Orange ribbon. Fresh cuts in the brush. White marking paint along the ditch line. They weren't warning me off. They were preparing to fold my land into something bigger. A black SUV rolled up behind me so quietly I didn't hear it until the tires touched loose gravel. The driver's door opened. Out stepped a woman in cream slacks and mirrored sunglasses, holding a stainless coffee tumbler like she was late for a board meeting, instead of taking a man's property before breakfast. "You must be Ethan Cole," she said. She didn't ask. "You're blocking my road," I said. She smiled at the gate instead of me. "This is HOA-controlled access now." Smooth. Practiced. The kind of voice that made theft sound administrative. "Your cabin is inside a restricted development zone, pending integration." Pending integration. That was how she said take. I looked past her shoulder at the contractor trucks. One of them had stacked lumber in the ditch beside my road. The other had a pallet of stone near the culvert my grandfather built by hand. That culvert fed runoff from the ridge. If they crushed it, water would tear straight through the lower lots the first hard rain. So this wasn't just my cabin anymore. They were already leaning on the whole slope like it belonged to them. "Who gave you access?" I asked. She lifted one shoulder. "The board has authority to secure common entry points." Common. There was that word again. She walked closer, heels clicking on gravel, and handed me a packet in a clear plastic sleeve. Her perfume cut through the diesel for one sharp second. Inside were maps, notices, and a bright yellow sheet titled Non-Compliant Structure Review, My Cabin, reduced to a line item. "You have 72 hours to remove personal belongings," she said. "After that, site work begins." I flipped one page. Then another. They had shaded my road, my turnout, even the clearing beside the cabin where my grandfather used to split oak in the fall. At the bottom was a rendering. A gatehouse. Decorative stone walls. A sign for a private mountain community, built exactly where my access control post stood. She had already sold the lie on paper. That was her mistake. I'm Ethan Cole. Civil Access Systems. 15 years. Roads. Gates. Emergency ingress. Utility clearance. I don't raise my voice when someone tries to box me out. I check what they touched. I walked to the hinge side and crouched beside the post. Fresh concrete. Still damp in the shade. They had poured around my easement hardware without removing it. That meant they never traced the control line. Never checked the buried shutoff box. Never understood why the county installed that post in the first place. Behind me, one of the contractors killed his engine. The silence that followed felt bigger than the road. "Mr. Cole," she said, a little sharper now, "I'd advise you not to interfere." I stood up slowly and wiped concrete dust from my fingers. Up the hill, the saw started again. Then came the deeper sound. A backhoe. Not near my cabin. Past it. Farther in. That was when I realized. This wasn't some petty HOA power trip at a gate. They were already building beyond my land. And every truck up there was using a road that answered to me. By noon, the whole mountain was going to feel it. The backhoe did not stop. Its engine rumbled deep through the trees, steady and patient, like it had already claimed the hillside. I turned away from the gate and looked up the road again. Fresh tire tracks cut through the dirt, wider than anything I had seen here before. Heavy equipment. More than one machine. They were not just testing access. They were committing to it. "You are not authorized past this point," she said behind me, her tone tightening just enough to notice. I did not answer. I walked to the edge of the ditch and followed the line with my eyes. The culvert sat half buried under loose gravel. Someone had already scraped the top layer off the runoff channel. One hard storm and that entire slope would turn into a river. Not just my cabin. Everything downhill. I crouched and brushed dirt off the metal cap near the post. Still intact. Still connected. They had poured concrete around it, but they never opened it. Never traced the line. That meant the control was still mine. Behind me, a truck door slammed. One of the contractors stepped closer, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked at the gate, then at me. "We got a schedule to keep," he said, not hostile, just tired. "They told us access was cleared." I nodded once. "They told you wrong." He glanced back at the woman. She did not move. Just stood there with that same practiced calm, like this was already handled. That was the second mistake. She thought authority on paper moved faster than reality on the ground. It never does. I stood up and walked back to my truck. The engine ticked as it cooled. I reached into the glove box and pulled out a small black key. Not for the gate. Not for her lock. For the box buried under 2 inches of dirt and a thin layer of concrete they never bothered to break. I did not use it yet. Not here. Not in front of them. Timing matters more than force. "You should really read the notice," she said, stepping closer now. The smell of her coffee cut through the air again. 72 hours goes fast. I looked at her for the first time since she arrived. "So does a permit review," I said. Her smile flickered. Just for a second. Enough. I climbed into the truck and shut the door. Gravel popped under the tires as I reversed. I did not rush. I did not look back. But I watched everything in the mirror. The contractors stayed by their trucks. Engine still running. Waiting. She stood by the gate, arms crossed now, no longer relaxed. Something had shifted. They could feel it. Half a mile down, I pulled off at the old turnout where the road widened just enough for 2 vehicles to pass. The county marker was still there. Faded. Bent. Ignored. I stepped out again and walked to the side of the road. The brush here was thicker. Untouched. That was where the secondary line ran. Hidden. Older than the gate. Older than her paperwork. I pushed through the branches and found the box. Same steel. Same lock. This one I opened. The hinge creaked softly. Inside, the control panel sat exactly where I left it last winter. Clean. Dry. Functional. A single switch controlled access beyond the ridge. Not just the gate. Everything tied to this road. Emergency clearance. Service routing. Load restrictions. I ran my fingers over the switch but did not flip it. Not yet. Up the hill, another engine started. Louder this time. More machines. More weight on a road they did not own. I closed the box and locked it again. By the time they realized what they had built on, it would already be too late. I waited until the noise on the ridge settled into a rhythm. Engines idling. Metal clanking. The kind of sound that means people think they have time. By mid-afternoon, the sun sat high enough to burn the mist off the trees, and the air smelled like dust and cut wood. They were moving fast now. Faster than they should have. I parked just below the bend where the road dipped out of sight from the gate. From there, I could hear everything without being seen. A second crew had arrived. Different trucks. New plates. That meant investors or buyers were already circling. They were not just building. They were selling something that was not fully theirs yet. I stepped out and walked the edge of the road again, slower this time. Every mark told a story. Tire ruts deeper than before. Gravel pushed aside in uneven lines. Someone had already overloaded a section that was never graded for that weight. That was not an accident. That was pressure. Too much too soon. I stopped near the culvert again and listened. A faint trickle of water still moved underneath, but it sounded thinner now. Choked. They had packed debris into the runoff path without even noticing. One hard rain would not just wash it out. It would tear the entire shoulder loose. That road was never designed for what they were forcing onto it. And they had no idea. A shout echoed up the hill. Short. Frustrated. Then the backhoe went quiet. That was new. I moved closer, keeping to the brush line. From this angle, I could see just enough. The machine sat angled across the slope, one track slightly lifted. Not stuck. Not yet. But close. A worker crouched near the edge, pointing at the ground. Another shook his head. They were already feeling it. The limits of something they thought they owned. I stepped back before they could notice me and returned to the truck. The key in my pocket felt heavier now. Not because of what it was. Because of when to use it. Timing was everything. Too early, and they would scramble. Too late, and the damage would spread. I drove down to the turnout again and cut the engine. Silence rolled in behind me, broken only by whine through the trees. I opened the control box once more. The switch sat there, simple and quiet. One movement could change everything above the ridge. Access. Weight limits. Routing priority. It was all tied to this line. They had built their entire operation on top of a system they did not even know existed. That was the third mistake. They assumed land meant control. It never does. Not without infrastructure. I closed the lid and leaned back against the truck. Across the valley, I could see a thin line of dust rising. More vehicles climbing the lower road. Buyers, most likely. Maybe even inspectors. The kind of people who ask questions when something does not feel right. That would accelerate things. Good. Pressure reveals cracks faster than time ever could. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then it buzzed again. Same number. I answered on the third call. Mr. Cole, her voice said, controlled but tighter than before. We need to resolve access today. Resolve. Not authorize. Not confirm. Resolve. That word meant something had already gone wrong up there. I looked toward the ridge, where the machines had gone quiet again. You already started without it, I said. A pause. Short. Sharp. We are prepared to compensate for temporary inconvenience, she replied. Temporary. That was how she framed it. Like this was a delay, not a failure. I glanced at the control box one more time. Still closed. Still waiting. You built past the limit, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, softer, what limit? I smiled just enough to feel it. They still did not know. Not yet. And by the time they did, it would not be a conversation anymore. The line went quiet after I said it. Not a dropped call. Just silence on the other end. The kind where someone is thinking faster than they are speaking. Then her voice came back, lower now. Careful. Explain what you mean. I leaned against the truck and watched a hawk circle above the ridge. Slow. Patient. You built past the rated access, I said. That road has limits. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear something faint behind her. Not wind. Not traffic. Voices. Multiple. She was not alone anymore. Our engineers cleared the site, she said. The confidence was still there, but thinner. Like it had been stretched. Your engineers never opened the control line, I said. They measured dirt. Not load. That landed. I heard it in the way she stopped moving. In the way the background noise dropped for a second. Someone near her must have reacted. I pushed off the truck and walked a few steps toward the turnout, boots crunching steady on gravel. You have equipment up there that exceeds what that road can legally support, I continued. And you already routed traffic beyond the designated access point. I let that sit. No rush. She breathed in slowly. If there is a discrepancy, we can adjust, she said. Adjust. Another word for undo something already set in motion. I looked up the road again. A flatbed was climbing now, heavier than anything before. It took the curve wide, tires sliding slightly on loose gravel. Too much weight. Not enough base. You cannot adjust what is already committed, I said. Not without stopping everything. A sharp voice cut through her side of the line. Muffled, but urgent. Then another. Questions. Confusion starting to spread. She covered the receiver for a second. I could hear the shift even through the phone. The moment control starts to slip. When she came back, the tone was different. Still controlled, but now there was pressure behind it. What exactly are you suggesting? She asked. Suggesting. Not telling. That was new. I turned and walked back to the control box. I did not open it. Just stood over it. I am suggesting you should not have touched that road, I said. A truck horn echoed faintly from the ridge. Short. Frustrated. Then another engine cut off abruptly. Something was happening up there. Something they did not expect. We have active contracts, she said quickly. Buyers. Timelines. We cannot just stop. There it was. The real problem. Not the road. Not the land. The commitment stacked behind it. Money already promised. I tapped the metal lid of the control box once with my knuckle. A dull, solid sound. Then you should have verified access before you sold anything, I said. The wind shifted and carried the smell of overheated brakes down the slope. Too much strain on the descent. They were pushing the road both ways now. Up and down. That accelerates failure. Always does. Mr. Cole, she said, sharper now, we are willing to discuss compensation. Compensation. The last step before admitting a mistake without saying it out loud. I smiled faintly and looked at the ridge again. Dust hung in the air, thicker now. Movement had slowed. Not stopped. But uncertain. Hesitant. This is not about compensation, I said. This is about control. Silence again. But this time it was heavier. Not confusion. Realization starting to form. You do not control that road, she said, trying to push it back. Trying to reassert something that was already slipping. I reached down and brushed a thin layer of dirt off the edge of the control box. The metal caught the light for a second. Clean. Unbroken. Still mine. No, I said quietly. You just have not figured out who does yet. Up on the ridge, a deep crack echoed through the trees, followed by a sudden shout. Then everything went still. The echo from the ridge did not fade right away. It rolled through the trees, low and hollow, like something deep had shifted under weight it was never meant to carry. I straightened and listened. No engines. No movement. Just wind brushing through the branches and a faint metallic tick somewhere uphill. Cooling metal. That meant everything had stopped at once. What was that? She asked, her voice tighter now, stripped of the calm she walked in with. I did not answer her question. I watched the ridge instead. A figure appeared near the bend, small against the trees, waving both arms. Another joined him. Then a third. They were not working anymore. They were looking down. Waiting for instructions that were not coming. You should pull your people back, I said. Now. Silence on the line. Then muffled voices again, sharper this time. Someone arguing. Someone asking the same question twice. The kind of confusion that spreads when nobody has the right answer. We have a situation, she said, but it sounded like she was repeating something she had just been told. Not leading it. You have a load issue, I corrected. I stepped closer to the control box but still did not open it. Not yet. The timing had to land clean. Up on the ridge, one engine turned over, then cut off again immediately. Wrong move. Too much weight shifting too quickly. The road could handle a lot if it was respected. It fails fast when it is not. Our crew says the ground gave slightly under the rear track, she said. It is stable. Stable. That word again. I could almost see the machine in my head. One track higher than the other. Weight redistributed into a section never compacted for it. Not a collapse. Not yet. But close enough that one more push would turn it into something else. Tell them not to move it, I said. Tell them to leave it exactly where it is. She did not respond right away. That meant she was relaying it. Or deciding whether to. A man's voice cut through her side of the call. Louder than before. Not asking now. Telling. The tone changed everything. Authority shifting hands. We need to reposition to clear the access lane, she said, more quickly now. Emergency vehicles may need, they will not get through if you move that machine, I said, cutting her off. I kept my voice level. No rush. No edge. Just fact. That landed harder than anything else. Because it was not an argument. It was a limit. Up the slope, a sharp crack sounded again. Shorter this time. Followed by the scrape of metal against rock. Then a chorus of voices, all at once. Not panic. Not yet. But close. The kind that comes right before people realize they are out of options. We have to maintain access, she said. The word maintain felt forced now. Like she was trying to hold on to something already slipping. I looked down at the control box again. Then up the road. Then back to the ridge. Everything lined up in my head. Weight. Grade. Drainage. Load limits. They had pushed past every one of them. And now they were standing on it. You lost access the moment you poured that gate into my line, I said quietly. You just did not feel it until now. A long pause followed. No voices this time. No background noise. Just her breathing, faint and controlled, trying to slow it down. What do you want? She asked. Not compensation. Not adjustment. What do you want? That was the first honest question she had asked all day. I let the wind fill the space between us for a second. Let her hear the silence from the ridge. Let her understand how quickly things had shifted. I want you to stop everything, I said. Every machine. Every delivery. Every contract tied to that road. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. Then, almost under her breath, that is not possible. I nodded once, even though she could not see it. Then neither is what you are building, I said. I reached down. And finally flipped the latch on the control box. The hinge opened with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. Up the hill, one last engine tried to start. It did not catch. I did not flip the switch right away. I let the lid hang open and listened. Up on the ridge, the silence stretched longer than it should have. Machines do not stay quiet unless someone tells them to. That meant orders were already changing. Too late, but changing. What did you just do? She asked. Her voice was steady, but the control was thinner now. I rested my hand on the edge of the box and looked up the road. Nothing yet, I said. But I am about to. That landed harder than anything before. Not because of the words. Because of the timing. A shout echoed again from the ridge. Sharper now. Focused. One voice cutting through the others. Someone had taken over up there. Probably the site supervisor. The one who actually understood what was happening under the tracks. We need to stabilize the machine, she said quickly. Then we can discuss access. I shook my head even though she could not see it. You do not stabilize that from above, I said. You stabilize it from the line you buried. Silence. Then a low murmur on her side. She was relaying again. This time faster. Less confidence. More urgency. I leaned down and brushed a bit more dirt off the control panel. The labels were still visible. Load restriction override. Emergency lockout. Service routing priority. All tied into one system that fed through this road and everything beyond it. They had poured concrete around the housing, but they never disconnected it. Never even checked it. That was the difference between building on land and understanding it. Tell me exactly what you think you control, she said. The question came out sharper than she meant it to. Pressure does that. I looked up at the ridge again. A worker moved slowly along the edge near the machine. Careful steps. Testing the ground before each shift of weight. Good instinct. Too late. I control whether anything moves past that bend, I said. Up or down. A truck engine tried to start again. It turned once. Twice. Then failed. Not mechanical. Not fuel. Routing. The system was already restricting load distribution without me touching it. It was reacting to the strain. That meant they had triggered the threshold. That meant the margin was gone. Our crew is reporting power issues on the equipment, she said. That is not possible. I exhaled slowly. It is when the system reroutes priority, I said. You are drawing more than the line allows. Another pause. Then a different voice came onto the call. Male. Older. Controlled. This is Daniel Harper, project supervisor, he said. We need immediate clarification on what you are implying. Finally. Someone who understood the difference between land and systems. You are operating beyond rated access on a controlled line, I said. You buried the control point under your gate. You never disengaged it. Everything above that bend is now restricted. I let that settle. He did not respond right away. Good sign. That meant he was processing, not reacting. Are you saying you can shut down access? He asked. Not aggressive. Just direct. I looked at the switch. Still untouched. Still waiting. I am saying you never had full access to begin with, I said. Up on the ridge, a second machine powered down completely. Then another. One by one, the noise disappeared. Not by choice. By limitation. The system was tightening around them. We have personnel on that slope, he said. We need controlled movement to secure the area. I nodded slightly. That was the first correct priority anyone had stated all day. Then you should have asked before you built past the line, I said. The wind shifted again, carrying the smell of hot rubber and dust. Everything up there was under strain now. Not breaking. But close enough to feel it. What do you need to restore full access? He asked. Straight to it. No more posturing. I closed my eyes for half a second and pictured the entire line from the base road to the ridge. Every junction. Every limit. Every failure point they had pushed through. Then I opened them again and looked at the switch. You do not get full access back today, I said. The silence that followed was heavier than anything before. Not confusion. Not frustration. Acceptance. Starting to settle in. And up on the ridge, something shifted again, slow and deep, like the mountain itself was reminding them whose system they had stepped into. The ridge stayed quiet longer than it should have. No engines. No movement. Just wind brushing across disturbed dirt and the faint creak of metal under strain. That kind of silence means people are waiting for permission that is not coming. We cannot hold position indefinitely, Daniel said. His voice stayed measured, but the urgency was there now. Not panic. Pressure. Real pressure. I kept my eyes on the slope. A worker near the machine shifted his footing again, slow and careful, testing each step like the ground might answer back. You are not holding position, I said. You are buying time. A short pause followed. Then, quieter, for what? I let that hang for a second. The answer was already happening above us. For the road to decide how much more it is willing to take, I said. A faint rumble rolled down the ridge. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just enough to feel through the soles of your boots if you knew what to listen for. That was the base layer shifting under load. Not failure. A warning. We need controlled release, Daniel said. We need to move that equipment back to stable ground. I shook my head. You do not have stable ground anymore, I said. Not until the line resets. Silence again. Then I heard him exhale slowly, like he had just reached the same conclusion I had 30 minutes earlier. What triggers the reset? He asked. That was the right question. Finally. I glanced down at the control box. The switch waited exactly where it had always been. Simple. Unmoved. Holding more authority than anything they had poured into the hillside. Load withdrawal, I said. Gradual. Controlled. From the bottom up. Another pause. Longer. He was thinking through it. Calculating distance. Weight. Timing. We cannot pull from the bottom, he said. The access lane is blocked by our own staging. I nodded once. I already knew that. Then you built your own trap, I said. Up on the ridge, a worker waved again, sharper this time. Another joined him. They were not asking anymore. They were signaling. That meant something had changed. I focused on the machine. The angle looked slightly different now. Not by much. But enough. A few inches is all it takes on a slope like that. We are seeing minor ground displacement, Daniel said, confirming it. His tone stayed steady, but the words came faster now. We need to correct it before it compounds. You already crossed that point, I said. Now you manage it. I rested my hand lightly on the edge of the box again. Still not touching the switch. Still letting the system tighten around them on its own. You said we do not get full access today, he continued. What do we get? That question mattered. Not just for him. For everyone tied to what was happening up there. Buyers. Contractors. Schedules stacked on assumptions that no longer held. I looked up the road one more time. Every track. Every mark. Every place they pushed past a limit they never checked. You get restricted movement, I said. One vehicle at a time. Light load only. No elevation gain until the base clears. I could almost hear the math running in his head. That meant hours. Maybe longer. Delays cascading through everything they had planned. That will shut us down, he said quietly. Not arguing. Just stating it. No, I said. What you did already shut you down. The wind picked up slightly, carrying loose dust across the turnout. It drifted low, then settled again. Even the air felt slower now. Like the entire ridge had shifted into a different pace. If we comply, he asked, you maintain that restriction? I let a second pass before answering. Timing still mattered. If you comply, I said, the system stabilizes. Not a promise. A condition. Behind him, faint through the phone, I heard someone call out numbers. Measurements. Angles. They were finally treating the ground like something that could answer back. Too late to avoid it. Just in time to manage it. And if we do not, he asked. I looked down at the switch again. My fingers rested just above it now. Close enough to feel the cool metal without touching it. Then the line enforces it for you, I said. Up on the ridge, another low shift rolled through the slope. Slower this time. Heavier. And for the first time all day, nobody spoke over it. The ridge did not move all at once. It shifted in small, uneven breaths, like the ground was deciding where to settle under the weight they forced onto it. Dust lifted in thin sheets, then dropped again. No one spoke over it this time. They were listening now. Finally. We are initiating controlled withdrawal, Daniel said, his voice steady but lower than before. Not confident. Careful. Starting with light vehicles at the base. That was the first correct move they had made all day. I kept my hand hovering above the switch and watched the lower bend. A pickup truck eased into view, moving slow, tires hugging the inside edge like the driver understood what was at stake. Good. That meant word had reached the right people. One at a time, I said. No overlap. Keep spacing at least 50 yards. A short pause. Then, understood. The truck rolled past the first dip without issue. No slide. No shift. Just weight moving where the road could still handle it. Up the slope, the larger machine stayed frozen in place, angled across the grade like it had been caught mid-step. Workers kept their distance now. No sudden movements. No shouting. Just signals. Controlled. That was how you kept something from getting worse. The wind shifted again, carrying less dust this time. The air felt different. Not lighter. Just more stable. We are clearing staging at the lower axis, Daniel said. It will take time. I nodded slightly. Time was the only thing they had left. And they were finally using it correctly. Another vehicle started down, slower than the first. The spacing held. No one rushed. That mattered more than speed now. Do not let anything climb, I added. Even if it looks clear. Confirmed, he said. No hesitation this time. No pushback. Just compliance. Behind me, the control box stayed open, quiet, waiting. I had not touched the switch. I did not need to. The system had already tightened to its limit. All I had to do was let it hold. We have buyers arriving at the lower road, she cut in suddenly. Her voice came back into the call, sharper than before. Not controlled anymore. Fractured. They are asking why. Access is restricted. I did not turn. I kept my eyes on the ridge. Then tell them the truth, I said. Silence followed. Heavy. We cannot do that, she replied, almost immediately. Too fast. Too defensive. You already did, I said. When you sold them something you did not control. Up the hill, another low shift rolled through the slope. Softer now. Less violent. The ground was settling into a new balance. Not ideal. But stable enough if they did not push it again. We are halfway through lower clearance, Daniel said. No further displacement reported. Good. That meant the pressure was easing. Slowly. But it was working. I stepped away from the box and moved back toward the truck, keeping the line in sight. Everything felt quieter now. Not calm. Just controlled. That was the difference. We need partial restoration once the base clears, Daniel continued. To bring equipment down safely. There it was. The next step. The one that mattered. I stopped beside the truck and looked back at the box. The switch waited, unchanged. You get limited routing once the base is clear, I said. No heavy descent. You bring that machine down in stages. Slow. A pause. Then, understood. No argument. No negotiation. Just acceptance. Behind him, I heard someone repeat the instructions. Clear. Direct. They were finally speaking the same language as the ground beneath them. And the gate? She asked. Her voice again. Quieter now. Not demanding. Asking. I let a second pass before answering. The gate is not your problem anymore, I said. That was not what she expected. I could hear it in the silence that followed. Confusion. Then something else. Realization starting to catch up. Then what is, she asked. I looked up the road one more time. Every mark they had made. Every limit they had ignored. Every assumption they had built on. Everything behind it, I said. Up on the ridge, the first heavy machine shifted again. This time, just enough to begin its way back down. Slowly. Carefully. Exactly how it should have moved from the start. But now, every inch it traveled had to be earned. The machine did not rush its way down. It crept. 1 inch at a time, steel tracks easing. Backward over ground that had already been pushed too far. Every movement was deliberate now. No shortcuts. No assumptions. Just wait and response. Lower section is clear, Daniel said after a long stretch of careful silence. His voice sounded different. Not pressured. Not sharp. Focused. Maintaining spacing. No overlap. I nodded, even though he could not see it. That was how this road was meant to be used. Controlled. Respected. The first heavy vehicle reached the bend and paused. The driver waited. Not for instruction. For confirmation from the ground itself. Good. They were learning. Proceed slow, I said. Do not correct mid-turn. Let it settle. Understood. The machine moved again. The angle adjusted slightly as it passed the weakest section. No slide. No shift. Just pressure transferring exactly where it needed to go. The ridge held. This time. Behind it, the rest of the equipment stayed locked in place, waiting their turn. No one tried to move ahead. No one tried to rush. That was the real change. Up on the slope, the workers stood back, watching every inch of movement like it mattered. Because now, it did. We have cleared primary load, Daniel said. Secondary equipment ready to descend in sequence. His tone carried something new. Not control. Respect. For the system. For the limits. For what they had stepped into without understanding. I turned slightly and looked back at the control box. Still open. Still untouched. The switch had not moved all day. It did not need to. The system had enforced itself the moment they crossed the line. You maintain sequence, I said. No exceptions. Confirmed. A pause followed. Then, quieter, we will need to suspend all further work after extraction. That was not a question. That was a decision. I exhaled slowly and let the air settle. The wind had calmed. The dust had dropped. Even the trees seemed still now. Like the ridge had accepted the correction. For now. You should, I said. Behind him, I heard the faint sound of someone relaying that order. Clear. Final. No debate. The project had shifted from expansion to recovery. That was not something they could hide. Not from the crews. Not from the people. Already on their way up the lower road. They are still arriving, she said again, her voice cutting in softer than before. Not sharp anymore. Not controlled. Just tight. Buyers. Inspectors. They are asking questions we cannot answer. I looked down the road toward the base. A line of vehicles had formed just beyond the lower curve. Waiting. Watching. Engines idling. People stepping out, looking up at something they did not understand yet. Then do not answer them, I said. Show them. Silence followed. Not confusion this time. Something heavier. Realization settling into place. Up on the ridge, the second machine began its descent. Slower than the first. More careful. It followed the exact path already tested, each track landing where the previous one had held. That was how you move through a system you do not control. You follow what has already proven stable. You do not invent new paths. We will need access restored for compliance review, Daniel said after a moment. Not today, I replied. No hesitation. No room for interpretation. The wind shifted once more, light and steady, carrying clean air up the slope. The tension that had sat in the ground all morning had eased, but it had not disappeared. It never does. Not after something like this. Understood, he said quietly. No pushback. No negotiation. Just acceptance. I stepped back to the control box and lowered the lid slowly. The metal clicked into place with a soft, final sound. I did not lock it. I did not need to. The line was already set. The limit already drawn. Behind me, the ridge continued its slow return to balance, machine by machine, inch by inch, each movement earned the way it should have been from the start. And down at the gate, where her sign still hung on steel she did not understand, the first group of buyers stepped out of their cars and looked up at a road that no longer answered to her.